Hello everyone, it is Christine here and I am having such a fun time working on the piece that I am creating for the next exhibition with the art group that I am involved with, the Southeast Contemporary Art Network, and our exhibition is called Beatlemania and we've taken inspiration from Beatles songs and I've picked Octopus's Garden and I'm going to be creating a large-scale coral reef octopus garden complete with cave. But today's episode is all about stump work and Goldwork and my version of it, which I hope will be an approachable version that might get you thinking about how you can create dimensional elements, particularly if you want to have a play with some of these nature's textures pieces, some of these pieces that are more dimensional and can move your stitching from flat to actually creating things that have lots of life and vigor in them. So I've got underneath my octopus here just some of my coral pieces which I have created in previous episodes, both showing you how you can dye laces and fabrics and doilies, also how you can use things that are already coloured like just pieces of ribbon, even synthetic ribbons. You can get some really lovely corally effects. I'm just clicking on my camera to make sure it stays in focus. My good friend Joy, she said, oh yeah, we must love you because we watch you even when your videos go out of focus, which did make me laugh a lot. And thank you for persevering. I know sometimes my camera control skills leave a little bit to be desired, but I thank you for your patience and your kindness and your humour. So this is my Goldwork octopus and I was inspired by, I think I saw it on the, what's it called, the Royal School of Needlework, and they were doing one that was still on the piece of fabric, but I want this to sit dimensionally and be able to be posed within my broader coral reef. So I have created it so that it is fully self-standing, and the great thing will be afterwards, if I decided I wanted to put it in a different place, it can still be moved around. So I'm going to be showing you how I've created it so that its legs are fully shapeable and movable. I'll talk about how I created the head, how I did the eyes, and we'll probably still do a few more finishing touches to it as well. And I'll show you how I've beaded, but also just how I've laid it up so it's got some real interest in, it's not just a single colour, it's actually sort of got dimension and different golds working throughout it. So I've actually used 3 different types of gold thread, and not all of them are the actual like metallic gold thread. I think this one could be one that's got metallics in it. I imagine probably even this one does have some, but it's very fine. This one, which is the most versatile, it's the least fiddly of all the gold threads, is just like a thread that is coloured gold, but it doesn't feel, it might have some metallic elements in it. And I've also used wire on the inside, jewellery wire. I picked this up at the Embroiderers Guild D-Stash market. So all my supplies are all secondhand and reclaimed, which is, yeah, a lot of fun. And also, yeah, using a variety of beads as well. So, octopus, how have I approached the making of the legs? I'll show you that first of all, and we'll make the final 2 legs, because you might have noticed that so far my octopus is only whatever a 6-legged octopus is called. Maybe unlucky, I'm not sure. Boom tish, bad dad jokes really, isn't that? So this is one of my legs in a partially finished state so that I can show you all the different steps. So what I did for my legs was I decided to make 2 legs at the one time. So I worked out how long I wanted the legs to be, and then I basically took a double length of wire for that, and once I had the length that I wanted and had kind of tested that it would give me enough ability to kind of bend and twirl, then I cut all my pieces of wire, so I had that ready. Although I do realise, I think because the first legs I actually attached into the head piece before I'd really thought about the shapes. Some of the legs are just slightly shorter than the others, but you won't be able to tell when it's all twisting fabulously like this. So what I then did, and what we'll be doing some of now, is I then cut out some, and this is just a blanket scrap piece I got from Waverley Mills. I chose a goldy colour in case any of it showed through in the finished product. It doesn't, but it's a good thing to think about just in case you do get any show through. And then I cut a strip of that, which I basically am just wrapping around the wire, and I can trim this end piece down here because I only need a little bit to overlap at the end. So let me trim that down, and then we'll thread up our needle. I'm just using a yellowy thread, a nice strong Aurifil thread. Got my beautiful little pin cushion from my friend Chris. We're all very excited about our Fleur Woods workshop next year, which is when I'll probably get to see, well, I'll get to see Chris again then. I don't think we'll get to see each other before then. But we're both going to the workshop, and I think it's virtually going to be the same crew as last year. We've all booked back in because we just had such a lovely time yet again. So if I was starting down that end, and you'll see how I kind of finish at this end, which would be the same method that you'd apply down the other end. I'm just going to click. I'm not sure how my camera is going to like this sort of sequiny base. I might actually move it because I think it might upset my camera. I just wanted to show you my octopus on it because that's going to be used in the interior of my octopus cave. But we'll get to that in a future video. I think in the next video we'll be ready to start constructing my coral reef, which I'm going to be using an old shrunken woolen jumper that I got from the reverse art truck. That's going to be the base of my piece because the jumper has fully felted and it has some great sort of dimensional designs on it that I think could actually look really good as part of the reef. I haven't decided yet whether they'll get fully covered, but I think some of the elements would be quite good even if I don't put the coral everywhere. But I always find those things emerge. I kind of have to start, and then a bit like this project, I sort of problem solve and figure things out as I go along. So it is evening time here, and I had a very eventful day on, what is it? Yeah, it's Thursday night here, and I had a very eventful day on Tuesday. I went into the office for a workshop I was having that afternoon, and my morning was going great. Everything was all prepared and ready, and I thought, yep, I'll just pop off to the bathroom. So off I went to the bathroom, came out into the area where we wash our hands, and a friend was there. So I was chatting away to the friend. I had my head twisted around to sort of look at the friend on the other side of the washing area. And I put my hand down to squirt some soap onto my hand, and then turned my head back towards where I was squirting the soap. And at the very moment that what wasn't soap, but actually a hand sanitizer pump bottle next to the soap, which was blocked on the top of it. And when I pushed it down, it squirted upwards with quite a lot of force. And at that very moment, I was turning my head back with my eyes fully open, and the alcohol-based sanitizer went into both my eyes. And in that moment, I couldn't see anything. I was madly trying to get water to rinse my eyes. I think a few bad words came out of my mouth in that moment. Sorry, while I'm here and telling you the story. So I've just sort of stitching across, so I've covered that wiry end, and I'll just use the leftover thread. Just quickly jump back down here. So yeah, madly washing my eyes out, and then asking my friend if she could help me get out of the bathroom because I couldn't see. I actually bumped into the wall, but she was kind of guiding me but not fully guiding me, and bumped into the wall. And then, yeah, she realised that she actually had to sort of, drag me along. And then luckily we have some very good first aiders at work, and they proceeded to then get my eyes fully rinsed. Went through, I don't know how many huge bottles of saline they went through. So fully rinsed. It was still, very stingy at this stage. Luckily, I've got a very high pain tolerance, but it wasn't a pleasant feeling. And even after they had done it, we're really lucky that we've got the eye and ear hospital and their emergency department literally just 1 block down from where, so 2 minutes walk, I would say. So off there I headed and had to wait a little bit in the line before I even got to triage. But once I got to triage, I was seen very quickly. And then I went in for what I'm going to call the car wash of eye treatments. They get a massive bag of, I assume it's again saline water, and they were irrigating my eyes, or I think that's what they call it, irrigating, for I think about half an hour on both sides. And pH testing as they went, and testing how the vision was. Upshot is, and the fact that I'm able to stitch, I'll see how I go with the beading. We might not get all the beading done together because I am a little bit scratchy still, but the upshot is that my eyes should make a full recovery, and thankfully because of the early treatment, it didn't end up a bad. I think it's what they call a level 1 chemical burn, or chemical conjunctivitis they call it, which is interesting because I always thought conjunctivitis was just like a bacterial or viral. Can't remember which it normally is. That was a very unplanned, totally freak incident. The fact that it was the culmination of all those things, and that it was funny. Another friend was telling me that they'd actually had a conversation with this other friend I was talking to in the bathroom, which had meant that my other friend didn't go to the bathroom when they'd planned, and they were delayed. So if they weren't there, I possibly wouldn't have been turned around. I possibly would have seen what I was doing and not pressed on the sanitizer pump. So it's just one of those really funny, odd, well, probably not funny, but freak accidents that can occur. So what I'm going to do now is show you the next step in the process, which is to wind on some of this gold. And so it's almost got it sort of holds its shape a bit. It's like obviously wrapped, it's gold, probably metal thread wrapped around an inner coil. So I've done that part of the way up. And what I'll do is probably just continue winding this up, and then I'll leave an end that I'll then start the next piece winding over. So let me just do that. I hope you can see okay. I'm just going to keep clicking on the focus in tab. I'm going to grab one of my clippy things to hold this, and in fact I need to leave a bit more of an end to overlap anyway, so I'll take that off. But I did make it to my workshop that afternoon once I got the all clear from the doctors at the eye and ear that I could proceed back to work. I think I was in a bit of shock that arvo because I can't remember that much of the workshop. I still did all my parts at it, but I don't think I was as useful as I would normally feel. I think it's just when something like that happens that is just so unexpected, and then you have that worry about, oh, have I done something really, really bad to my eyes? But yeah, it was such a relief to hear that it should all be a-okay-o. So I'm just trying to get this thread through. I might need to get an even bigger needle. Normally it will come through here. There we go. Because I just want to sort of secrete it into the end of here, just so it's sort of held partially. So I've got the one that I was already winding. I've got this one now, which I'll just bend up as well, and we can then make sure we sort of in the process of wrapping that we get to wrap both the pieces. So I'll just come back over here. So I've left the other end attached to the roll just so we can use what we need, and then we can cut it off and secure it at the other end. So we'll be doing a multiple wrapping process. This is the first layer, and if you don't you won't have something exactly like this. As I say, it's vintage, don't know where I got it from, don't know what brand it is. But you might want to think about what have you got in your stash and what can you kind of layer up, because that's going to give visual interest. But I chose this one as the initial layer because it does create a nice sort of tight winding. These really fine ones can be a bit fiddly to work with. And I wasn't sure initially that I wanted it to be this sort of shimmeriness, but I've decided that that gives it a nice look of the water, I think. So I actually quite like that that's sitting on the surface of the piece. Just move that clip out of the way. Put my needle back over there. And so you can see I'm just wrapping over where those other sort of leftover ends were. Oops, I need to just make that a bit tighter there. You want to sort of be laying it so that it's laying next to the previous piece. But as I say, don't worry too much if there are any little gaps. That's probably a bit too big of a gap. I'm just going to actually cut off that ratty end because it is a bit on the ratty side. And so I think if I did these legs again, I would probably shape them a little bit more, maybe with the stuffing so that they were a bit thicker towards the top, but I'll show you how I've worked past that issue in the wrapping anyway. So I just think anything we do in our creative process, it just prompts another sort of, design choice at the next stage. And there's always ways to work things to get the effect that you want. And I think sometimes it is just about starting, like not getting too hung up on not knowing exactly how you're going to do it, or worrying that it's not going to be awesome or as beautiful as something else that you've seen. I was watching my lovely friend Leanne from Leanne's Crafty Cupboard last night, and she was working on a beautiful piece of painting on silk that she had got in Japan. Such a lovely scene that she had photographed after getting off a train. And I think, she was she did say the video, she was, psyching herself out a bit at the start. But then when she started doing it, it was amazing. And if I could, I said to her, if I could paint half as well as she does, I would be so thrilled. But it's funny how we do that. Yeah, we do that psyching out of ourselves, and it's often so unnecessary because we've often got it. We've got this, so we give it a go. So I just need to sort of anchor this at this end, but we'll be coming over and making a nice pointy point on our end anyway. A pointy point on our end. I'm not sure that makes sense, but and so I'll just put a couple of little stitches over here. Don't worry that it's got the fluffy bits, because as I say, we'll be coming in with some of the other thread, because again, I worked out a way that I could get the nice little sort of pointier tip on my octopus. So I'll tie a knot with this one, and that should be fine. As you can see, the threads really do want to come, like it doesn't do well with friction, this one, at all. So next piece, I'll show how I then create the nice little endy piece. So I'm going to take some of this thread, which is much softer, much easier to work with. It doesn't sort of, it can unravel itself a little bit, but not in the way, not in terms of the outer around the inner, because it doesn't have an inner. It's more like a woven sort of thing itself. So I was very grateful for our first aiders at work, and I was very grateful for our public health system and the fact that you can get care. I was a bit worried going into the emergency department. I thought, will I be stuck here all day? But my eyes are kind of important to me, and I just wanted to do everything I possibly could after it happened to make sure I didn't create any long-term issues for myself. And we made sure before I left the building, I made sure that our first aider went in and got the offending pump bottle, which probably shouldn't even really be in the bathroom because we only need the soap dispensers in there, but maybe someone had it in there. And yeah, apparently they do get blocked quite often. So the eye and ear, both the nurse and the doctor said they had seen that injury quite a few times where they get blocked and then they pump upwards rather than downwards. And when they pump upwards, they pump up with quite a degree of force. So at least I didn't feel alone. I didn't feel like I was the only numpty that had managed to sanitize my eyes. I wasn't laughing at the time, but in retrospect I can laugh because I am super careful when I'm out and about. I'm always sanitizing my hands. Always have my little bottle with me. If I sort of touch the lift buttons at work or something, I'll sanitize from my little tube, which is much more safe, I think, because it can't do that whole sort of, it doesn't have that pump action to point upwards. But yes, sanitizing your eyeballs, not to be recommended. But if you do, rapidly rinsing, if you don't have the saline, like I was so lucky to have at work, even just running under tap water or using a bottle of water. But the main thing is to just keep irrigating. And if it's only in one eye, you don't want to let it run over into your other eye. But I was amazed the amount of solution they used at the hospital. They had a big metal container that they put to the side of my head and towels around my neck as they gave it a thorough car washing. I joked to my colleagues when I came back for the workshop. I was like, yep, I've got the cleanest eyes in Melbourne. Sanitised and washed. So what I'm doing here is just making sure that I've sort of covered up the tip and that there's none of the wool showing. In fact, I'll probably just do a couple of little wraps. Just sort of make it tight as well, because we don't want it to be sort of thicker on the tip. So I'll do some wraps and then I'll just take my needle wherever I can get it to go in. Put a couple of stitches there. And then I just want to put some stitches on top to start to make a little point. So I'm just going to go through the sort of very top bit of it and try and not catch on the other leg. So I'll come through here. And again, just working at the tip. And then I'm just going to start putting some little knots in as I do it and just trying to start to create a little tip. So I'm going to put my needle through the loop to make a notch. And then I'll step across and do another little knot. I guess it's almost, probably not really crocheting, but it's just starting to kind of build up a little netting, knotty sort of ness that will start to give us a little pointy shape as we build it up, almost like a pyramid, I guess. It was the best way I found to kind of create the shape that I wanted for the tip. So after this, then we'll do some... Well, actually, probably, after this we might be able to actually do the attaching of the legs on, and then we can probably do the further wrapping and beading at that point, I guess. There's a few different ways you can do it, but I think I might attach it on first as the next step. Just keep on keeping on. So again, just making another notch, just gradually building up from the tip. So let me know in the comments if anyone else has had a sanitizer squirt into their eyes. It would be kind of probably unlikely in my viewing base that it has happened to someone else, but you never know. It can be a small world, can't it? And I suppose most of us are surrounded by, even as people have got more relaxed around the post-pandemic, there's still a lot of sanitizer around that probably wasn't there 10 years ago. We never had it in our office sort of pre-pandemic. Had like regular soap, like regular soap dispensers, but not sanitizer. So that's starting to give us a tip. I'll probably still put a few more on. Sometimes it can be hard to push the needle through. It's like it just struggles to do something. So you just keep trying till you find a spot that it will push through. But you definitely couldn't do something like this with the really finicky sort of thread. It's this other thread. So it is good to have a few different gold threads in your kit. Now what I think I'll do is do a few wraps as well, just to build up just where I've been putting those knots in, just to give me a little bit more substance around that tip. And also just to sort of pull it in a little bit. So I might make sure that I'm sort of anchoring it at that point. So I'll put it through here, like this. And then I think I'll just want to bring it down because it's just sort of bulbing out a bit. So I'm just going to add a bit more wrapping as I come down here, just so that the tip is actually sort of narrower than this leggy bit. And then I'm just going to work down with my residual down the leg, wrapping over the surface of the other one, because it's just going to help to give again that sort of visual interest to the piece, not just having a single, because originally I thought, yeah, maybe I'd just have a single type of, although in fact this one has actually had the wrapping on it, but essentially just have the single gold. But I think it's so much more interesting with this multi-dimensional gold. Just need to leave a bit in the end that I can take through here. And again, I'll just take it through a second time and then tie a knot. And I can probably do a second knot, and then I can just cut it off. Or I could pick it up in the further wrapping. So I'll just leave a small end, and we'll probably pick that up in the further. Oh no, I think I can actually cut it off. It's got the two knots, doesn't it? Yep, that will be easier than trying to secrete it. So that's our two legs done. Now again, because I was doing this in quite an emergent way, I wasn't really thinking about spacing when I did it, but luckily I do have a final spot where these two legs can go. And so I will attach it on first. The other option is you could do your winding with this thread, because I am making the thighs of the octopus thicker to actually look like an octopus. So I could do some of the wrapping now to make it easier on myself. I might do that actually. On these ones I didn't. I put it on here first and then did the wrapping. No, I think I'll stick to how I was doing it because it was okay. It's a little bit fiddly at the start, but then it's fine. So let's just grab a bit of this thread, which we will use for the task of attaching it on. It's funny how you do something so many times and then you're like, well, just try it a different way. I suppose I could, but I want to show you how I did the other ones. So just putting a knot in the end. I'm pretty happy that these are about an even length. And so then I'm just going to start attaching them at the base of the body. So I put my thread through, and then I'm just going to put some over stitching on. It is hard with all the legs and the beads. Everything will try and sort of catch on everything else. You can sort of bend, that's a good thing, you can bend the legs out of the way. And again, if you don't have like that jewellery wire, I'm sure you could use like the florist wire. But yeah, this is just called jewellery wire, 2-ply, lightweight, malleable, easy to work with aluminium. And it's called Darico. But as I said, or Darice, D-A-R-I-C-E, I think. I got it secondhand at the Embroiderers Guild D-stash, so I'm not sure if it's a current product or something someone had in their stash. It was in the section where the Embroiderers Guild itself was selling its goodies. Other people had their own stores as well. Now, the head section which I'm stitching into, I made using some pipe cleaners and shaped those into, I don't know, oh yeah, I've got a pipe cleaner here. Let me lean down and grab it. So I just shaped myself a broad sort of shape and used a few of them just to shape into like a 4-sided shape. I then stuffed that with some wool that I had, and that became the base around which I have stitched and then wrapped to create the head. So there are some points where when I push the needle through I might be hitting against the pipe cleaner, but I've got plenty of that wool to stitch into as well. So I'm getting really, really excited about putting this whole coral reef piece together. And I do need to get a wriggle on because it's due to be delivered for the exhibition, I think around the 27th of this month, which is not far away. May is racing by. And having a couple of nights where I couldn't do the stitching after I'd had my little eye injury. It's so good to be back to stitching, and I've put my drops in. Yeah, eyes are still a bit scratchy, but I just couldn't. I have to do my stitching, otherwise I just don't feel balanced. So those, we're pretty happy with those where those are positioned. Yes. When I see octopuses, it always reminds me of those sort of pictures that people have drawn of aliens or some of the alien shapes, and I wonder if they were kind of inspired by, or maybe aliens do model after octopuses. Who knows? There's lots we don't know in this world, isn't there? Lots of things. You just hope that the alien life is a bit more intelligent than sometimes humanity proves itself to be. See, I'm pushing my needle in here and not finding a place that it wants to go through. So what I might do is just tie it off over here, and then we can start doing our wrapping with a longer piece. Yeah, I think I'm probably pushing against some of the pipe cleaner. So just cut that off. Then get my wire out of the way, get some of my gold, and again I'll just secure it at one end but leave it attached to the roll so that we have plenty to work with. So I'll take this end through and tie it. Just tie a little knot with it so it is attached on. And then we just want to start wrapping, and it can be useful at this point to use our bending and just sort of get it so that there's something that the twine won't wrap around. And it doesn't even have to go next to each other because we're going to want to make some nice chubby thighs on our octopus. I'll just click again to make sure we are staying semi in focus. I don't know how the camera will go with all the goldy sheeniness. But yeah, I'll hold this other leg out of the way actually. Sometimes it's useful. I'll just put the yarn on the floor because then it can actually just sort of spin around as I need to get more of the yarn. What I want to do is just gradually build up to create a nice thickness at the top. So it's going to be a fair bit, and I'm not worried if I use this one up, because I haven't really used much of this. I haven't actually used much of my Goldwork threads before. I used a little bit in my kintsugi on my still life vase and flowers, the odd little bit on like Christmas decorations, but I don't often use. So this is the year, this is the time henceforth to make sure I am fully diving into my stash, fully using it. And even like the coral reef is going to have a lot of elements in it. It's going to have a fair bit of goodies used and beads and all sorts of things. And I think that's great, because I want to use my stash. You get these beautiful things, and yeah, if I run out of gold thread, I can buy myself more, but I'd rather use it than just kind of have it sitting there on the shelf. So I don't mind that I'm kind of doing a lot of wrapping. As I say, I probably could have shaped it so that the thighs of the octopus were bigger with more of the wool blanket underneath. But I don't mind this process, and I think it does just add dimension and shimmer, and that way I don't have blanket sort of poking through or anything, because there's plenty of coverage being created. And so it's just back in the joints where you need to work a little bit to get them to sort of sit all the way in. Just pull some more thread. But as I say, I'll be doing some stitching over the top to create that little sort of skirt around that octopuses have. Not sure if it's called a skirt, but it almost looks like they're wearing a little tutu or something. And you can at any point, if it's sort of your thread is trying to kind of come unraveled, you can like cut your thread and then put the needle on and thread it through to sort of anchor down what you've done so far. But I haven't found too much of a problem. And so this is where you could do this wrapping before you attach it on. But I generally, just because it's got that movability, I can just do it once it gets onto here. It's almost hypnotising, isn't it, watching? Hopefully it's not like, I won't do the wrapping on the other side of the leg. I can leave that to do after. Because it's amazing how quickly time goes in a video like this. Because I want to show you then the next stage of the beading, and then the sort of, the further decorative wrapping. And just show you what I did for the head and eyes as well. So I'll just get this sort of down enough. Just add a bit more thickness up here. It works pretty well, just wrapping as you go. I think that's getting almost thick enough. I can always come back in with a bit more after I finish the video. And so now as I work down the leg, I'm going to not have it quite so thick, because I do still want to see some of the underlying. So this is just adding to where I did the wrapping before. And you can sort of do as much or as little as you want. But I will just want to fill in any of those spots where there might be, particularly as you bend it, there might just be little gaps where you can see the blanket. So I'll just put a few extra bits in there. Oh, and a bit of my stitching has come undone there, but that's okay. We'll come back and fix that up as we finish this bit of thread off. In fact, I might even, I'll just give myself a slightly longer bit of thread down here and rethread this bit of the finishing thread. I'll pop my thread through here because I just want to sort of anchor it given I've been doing the wrapping. Just find a place where I can get my thread to go through. Oops. I've just managed to catch the end, which I didn't want to do. And what I do want to catch though is this other little loopy bit that has come off. And I want to just integrate that into my little tip. And when we come in and do the beading, we can also just do a final sort of little bit of wrapping if we need down here. So hopefully we're still staying in semi-focus. And we'll just re-thread because I just want to do a few knots just to make sure it is going to hold properly, given it is supporting all the wrapping all the way up and down. Do another knot, and then one more knot for good luck. Pull it nice and tight, and then I can just snip off at the very tip. And so the very tip won't have the wire in it. I think there is a method where you could probably just leave the wire end and sort of wrap your thread around it, but I think it's a-okay. So yeah, we won't do the wrapping on this because I think you've seen enough wrapping. What I'll now show you is how I add the beading. So I'm going to use this thin gold thread. This is where the eyes might get a bit of a workout. So in fact, I could barely even see my beading needle there, my quite bent beaded beading needle. So I'm not sure how we'll go, but we shall see. I'll give it a go. You know, I'll always give it a go for you. And I just had to get back to my craft table because, as I say, I feel like I'm missing something when I haven't had an evening craft. I did put my videos on and yeah, sort of listened and then would look periodically at them. So Annie and Leanne and who else was I? Christy had one. Yeah, that's right. Christy had her whimsical wearables. I'm just so loving doing this collaboration with my lovely friends Sally and from Dottie B and Christy from So Bits Christy, and our lovely friend Valita has joined in making various ones of our projects, and it's just it's so joyful. And it was lovely because Valita mentioned, hello Valita, that she gifted the necklace she made following or taking inspiration from what I shared to her daughter, and her daughter loved it. So that made my heart happy. So yeah, do check out Valita as well. You'll see her linked along with a whole lot of other folks below this video, as I always do. I think it's a lovely way to support community. I'm a believer in abundance, and the more we share, the more abundance we create for others in terms of people that might want to watch and support others in their creative ventures. I just think there's more for everyone to go around. I don't have a scarcity worldview. And just be a good egg is what I say. Be good. Make the world a bit better place. Although who knows, with the universe deciding to squirt me in the eyes with sanitizer, who knows what the universe was trying to tell me? Maybe just taking a rest, maybe being careful about cleanliness. Although, as I say, I think I'm pretty good on that. Maybe see no evil, hear no evil. I'm not sure. What could it mean? My friend at work said, another friend said, you better buy a Tats Lotto ticket because that's such a freak accident. if I do Annie, I'll come over and join you for, this is Annie from Arty Farty Addy. I'll come and join for the bazaar. Lovely day at the Prairie Gardens. It sounds like a magical day, and Annie's going to be making a beautiful quilt with the people. What's she calling it? A bonkers quilt, I think, which I love. I love the names Annie comes up with. And she's going to be making that with her attendees. But also those of us that can't attend, well, unless we win Tats Lotto and can bear to be separated from our pooches, we can also contribute something for the quilt, which will down the track be auctioned for charity, which I just think is such a lovely idea. So I'm definitely going to be doing that. I'll have to check with Annie exact dates and things, but head over to Annie's channel, again linked below this, Arty Farty Annie, Annie Claxton. Because Annie does such wonderful, wonderful projects and has lovely little community live sessions. Unfortunately, I can't often make it to the lives because her Wednesday one is now like 11 o'clock here, which I'm meant to be well and truly asleep at 11 o'clock. So for the beading, I'm just using a variety of beads. These are tiny little gold ones. So I'm using the smaller ones down this end. And then as I work up, I sort of start to mix in some other ones. I'll probably do another tiny one. But yeah, you don't even need all the same beads. So it was a great way just to use some of the little random bags of beads I had and mix them up together, ones that are in sort of golds going through browns. Because again, it's just giving that little bit of interest. Like the golds almost blend in down here, but you can see them if you look closely, if you can get the camera to focus. You can sort of see them on there, can't you? And I'll have to refocus again. See, Joy, I'm doing it for you. And then I'm going to graduate up to a larger sort of goldy bronzy colour. And what I'm doing is just sort of laying them basically in a bit of a pattern like that. So sort of a diagonal across from each other pattern. I don't know exactly what pattern octopuses have, but I think they are sort of spread out. These are their little suctiony bits that I am imitating with the beads. You could, of course, do French knots if you didn't have beads of the right colour, but it could be hard doing that into these sorts of metallic threads because they are a little bit tough to stitch through. That's where the beading needle is actually quite good because it's a nice thin one. But the one problem with this thread is it does get a bit of wear, and it might start to at some point be a problem. Like right now it's being a little bit tricky. So it does get a bit of wear in the process. So again, I'll just pick up another bead. Oops, and I think I've created some little knot there, but probably okay. It's not sitting exactly where I want it to. It probably doesn't actually matter in the big scheme of things. And I'll come over to here. Again, it can just sometimes be a little bit difficult to get the needle to go exactly where you want. So get another mid-brown, sort of browny gold. And so I'm just, picking up the bead and then anchoring the bead down. Might need to put another one there because I think I only went through a thread or didn't go through that much to hold it. And then I take my needle over to the other side to put the next bead in. So I'll do another browny coloured one. And as I say, sometimes it's just hard where you're trying to put the needle in, and so just try somewhere else. And then over to this side. And I think my thread is getting a little bit worn. So what I'm going to do at this point is I'm just going to use my thread and now wrap over where I've laid the beads down. And so any of the gold thread that's joining between them will now have this additional gold thread sort of holding it in place. So if by chance it did get caught on something, one, it's less likely to get caught, but then there's something else kind of holding it. And again, this will just help to create some further layers of interest. And so I've still got my needle on the end, but yeah, you can see the thread is just starting to do the sort of unraveling process. And then at this end, I will just put some stitches in to anchor it in place. So it's just judging your thread, and probably better to use sort of smaller lengths of thread. I probably took too much thread to begin with, but I kind of had in my mind that I would do that wrapping if I needed to. Let me just get myself fully tied off at this end. And we can probably then just cut that off. So I still want to put a few more beads on because I want to bring in some of the darker beads. So on most of the legs I am going up to about where the sort of the thigh of the octopus starts. So let's just get ourselves a bit more thread, and we'll do a bit more beading. Can I see what I have done with my beading needle? Christine, what have you done? What have you done? What have you done? Did I put it back? No, I didn't. I'm sure I didn't put it back into my... There it is. Be very careful of them because they're so thin, and they're probably quite dangerous if they were poking up on your carpet. They could really pierce into something. So don't do as Christine does. Use your lovely pin cushion that your friend has given you. Don't leave it laying down round on your bench. And again, I've probably taken far too long a piece to begin with, so I might need to just shorten it down a smidge, because I probably don't need this much. Okay, so we'll continue up, and what I'm doing is sort of laying them on the bottom of the octopus leg, but it probably doesn't really matter because in the twisting we'll kind of pose it where we want it to be anyway. So I'll use a few more of the medium gold ones, but you can mix it up. But I think it's nicer to have the small ones down the bottom and then graduating up. Another one. Beading's never a fast process. I've never found it. It's a slow process, but it's a lovely way just to add those. I just think the fact that you can then just be looking at the octopus and see these smaller little details, I think that adds fun and interest, and it makes someone that's looking at the piece want to kind of take a closer look. And that's what I want the cave to do, so that as you move around the piece, you spot the octopus cave, and it's going to give some really good dimension to the whole piece as well, because I'll be able to have the coral sort of up the side and walls of the outside of the cave, and then this fabulous sequined fabric on the inside is the plan. We shall see. So I'm going to mix in some of the darker brown now. And again, you might sort of look at it and think, oh, will they go? Will they work? But they will. And again, they just give the sense of, shadow and sort of, and just on things like octopuses and fish, you get all different, sort of shading. Nature is not uniform in its colours. See, we've got a little knot happening, which will tend to happen with the metallic thread. Has it? Yep, it started unwinding itself here. So we might again just try and see if we can get it to go through. If we can't, what we're going to do is probably, oh no, it's totally unraveled itself. So I think I'll just need to let it break. Let that little endy bit hang there, but I'll shorten the endy bit, and then I think we'll do some wrapping over to anchor that in place. So let me get rid of my little frayed piece, and I'll just show you how to fix that problem, because that's as useful as seeing something going really well. I think when things don't go to plan, it's good to know an approach. So again, needle, didn't lose it that time, luckily. Thread it up. Put a knot in. Probably even the process of passing the knot down the metal thread is probably not the best option. And then put a stitch in to start us off. So we've got the knot kind of holding our thread. And then what we're going to do is just do some wrapping, move our beads out of the way, to wrap that end that was left behind, plus the end that we had where the knot was. And I can probably trim that end that was left behind a little bit, because we don't need such a long tail on that. And then just make sure we're capturing that end with our wrapping. I think I've caught the end properly. And then we can come back through and anchor it, and then we can continue putting some beads on if this thread will behave slightly better for us. So put another dark brown bead on, and then I'll come back in the final few minutes of this video and talk you through the eyes and just the wrapping and stitching that I did on the head. But happy to also answer any questions that you've got in the comments. Yeah, the gold thread's really giving me a hard time, so I think I won't make you watch me battle again through that knot, but again I'll use a similar process of wrapping it around, covering where the sort of the knotted thread is, and then getting another piece. Normally it's not quite as finicky as it is being right now. So that is the process to create these wonderful beaded legs. So that's like one where you can see it graduates up from the smaller beads up through the sort of the medium ones, and then up to these darker brown ones, and it's just, yeah, it creates such a lovely look when you've then got the legs. So for the head, as I mentioned, I created my shape with pipe cleaners. Again, I could have used that wire, and then at first I just put some stitches in to hold the stuffing, the wool that was in the middle in, and then I've subsequently done the wrapping around the head, and I wanted to make this top bit more bulbous, so that's what I created. And then for the eyes, what I did was got two beads out of my very mixed, very old bag of beads. I got these sorts of ones, although they were slightly more glossy, and popped those on. And so I used my beading needle to attach them first, just with some gold thread, and then I came in with the thread that I've been using for the wrapping, this thread, the one that I've been using all around, and wrapped around and around, and put stitches through as I went to hold those wraps in place. And so that hid the holes that were in the beads, and also created these wonderful bobbly effects. I still want to do a bit of finishing work on the top of the octopus, probably just some little stitches coming down to just give it a neat top on the head, and I need to finish doing the stitches that I'm doing around between the legs to create the sort of skirty effect once I've finished doing this other leg at the back. So that will be my octopus done. I can always put some final stitches across, not that anyone's going to see underneath, but I think I will finish him off properly underneath, and then it will be a matter of posing him within my piece. I think he'll be at the entrance to the cave is the plan, but if you'd love to see my evolving work on my coral reef and see how I use all these and so many more pieces that I've got looked out, come back for a future video. I've also got some really exciting videos coming up and planned on some further elements for my little portable sewing kit that is in a converted glasses case, but also building on the idea of the chatelaine recreation that so many of you loved, my little pin cushion that I shared in an earlier video. So I've got a whole series of ideas following on from that to share with you, which I think you're really going to enjoy. So thanks so much for watching, and I hope you had fun. I hope this has given you a whole lot of new ideas, whether for an octopus or for other things that you might want to create. And yeah, do reach out in the comments if you've got any questions or comments. Thanks so much, everyone. Take care. Bye.